Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for this information session. My name is Charlene Mancusi, and I'm the Program Officer for the Charles H. Hood Foundation. With me today is our Senior Scientific Advisor, Dr. Robert Sege. During the session, we'll provide a high-level overview of the Hood Foundation and delve into specific information regarding its flagship program, the Child's Health Research Awards. We welcome your questions during and following today's presentation. Please note this session is being recorded and will be posted to our website as a resource. We also have a chat option if you would like to write questions.
Just to know that automatically you're placed on mute when you join in. If you'd like to unmute yourself, please use the Zoom controls to do so. We find that we reduce background noise if people are muted when they first log on.
Thank you, Bob. With that, we'll get started. So for a little bit about the Charles Hood Foundation. This is a family foundation incorporated in 1942 by Harvey P. Hood in honor of his father, Charles H. Hood, who was a pioneer of the 1800s dairy industry. Charles Hood had a drive to improve sanitary production and distribution of the milk he sold, which revolutionized the industry and dramatically increased the survival rate for infants in the region. The foundation is managed by a board of trustees who are descended from Charles H. and Harvey P. Hood, and it seeks to fund groundbreaking and innovative pediatric research in and around the New England area, making meaningful change possible by filling the gaps in the medical research and innovation funding marketplace that will springboard the next generation of cutting-edge scientific leaders and advancements in pediatric health. The foundation offers three primary mechanisms for support. The Child Health Research Awards Program, which is designed to support early career investigators. This funding opportunity is posted via an open RFA and is the focus of today's information session. We also have the Major Grants Initiative to Advance Child Health, which aims to support outstanding senior investigators and is posted by a closed RFA process. And finally, program-related investments, or PRIs, fill the gap between translational research and clinical development and the application of pediatric-related initiatives. Startup companies are selected for PRI funding through an internal vetting process. In addition to providing funding, the foundation is dedicated to finding ways to meaningfully engage and connect with partners in child health and supporting collaborations wherever possible. 2019 brings a series of exciting developments, including incorporation of an annual networking event for our awardees and the launch of new social media platforms, which are all intended to support the shared goal of improving the care and well-being of children. Please visit our website, charleshoodfoundation.org, to learn more about the foundation and all of its programs and initiatives. Thank you. Now, moving into the main topic for this hour, the Child Health Research Awards Program. This program targets junior faculty leading independent research programs at nonprofit academic, medical, or research institutions in the New England states: Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Applicants must be working in the reported institution by the application deadline. The awards total $165,000 over 2 years to hypothesis-driven projects relevant to child health. The minimum percent effort required to be dedicated to a funded project is 20%. The trustees welcome proposals from all disciplines and research angles: basic, clinical, and translational science, public health, and health services research projects. As noted in the application guidelines, research projects that focus on pregnant women and their fetuses will not be considered responsive to this RFA. There are 2 application cycles offered annually. one in the spring for funding to begin in July, and the other in the fall for funding to begin the following January. Resubmissions are accepted, though only once during the next 2 semi-annual grant cycles following the original submission. The deadline for submitting an application for the current cycle will be Thursday, March 28th by noon. A bit more about researcher eligibility. As mentioned, the Hood Foundation wants to serve as a catalyst to help launch the careers of promising investigators, and this particular program is designed to support early career researchers who might not yet qualify or be considered competitive for funding from other sources. We consider PhD scientists who are within 5 years of employment following conclusion of training, and physician scientists within 7 years of employment following conclusion of training. We do not count time spent on family or medical leave toward this time clock. In addition, new this cycle, the program will begin allowing an additional 6 months to be added to the clock for applicants who serve as the primary caregiver for a child born or adopted during their applicable window. Again, the Child Health Program is intended to support newly independent faculty, to provide the opportunity to demonstrate creativity, and to assist in the transition to other sources of research funding. For this reason, we must carefully evaluate applicants' support from other funding sources. Applicants who hold a K award or are in the ROO phase of a K-99 ROO, as long as the award amount combined with other funding does not exceed the limits below, are still. Applicants are ineligible if at the time of application they have combined federal and non-federal funding totaling $500,000 or more in direct costs during the first year of the Hood Award. This figure refers to external funding only, and not an applicant's startup package, other intramural support, or the Hood Award. Applicants are ineligible if they are currently or have previously been designated as the principal investigator or co-PI on an RO1, PO1, Pioneer Award, New Innovator Award, or Early Independence Award. They are also ineligible if they are currently or have previously received similar large multi-year awards, total award amounts over $700,000 in direct costs, from other federal agencies or national foundations. Applicants who have pending RO1s or other large applications to the NIH and other agencies are still encouraged to submit proposals to the Hood Foundation. If notified on or prior to the Child Health application deadline, in this case March 28th, that they have been successful in securing federal or non-federal grant support, which will total over $500,000 in direct during the first year of the Hood Award, applications to the program will be considered ineligible for review. Notification of funding approval after the application deadline will not impact eligibility for a Hood Award. We'll pause for a moment now to see if there are any questions. And again, you can unmute yourself to speak, or if you'd like to use the chat window, you're welcome to do that. Okay, and we're not seeing questions come in. Apologies if you're trying and it's not working. We can definitely connect by email after the webinar, but for now, we'll move on. We wanted to go over a couple of slides to help clear up some potential misinformation that might be floating out there about the Hood Foundation and specifically the Child Health Awards program. As mentioned, the Hood Foundation supports researchers and institutions throughout New England. To date, over 30 institutions have been funded. Here we have a word cloud showing the various institutions that received Child Health Awards between 2005 and 2017. If you're familiar with how word clouds work, the more frequently a name shows up on a list, the larger it appears. You can see here that there are some minor variations between institutions, but most are simply due to the nature of the research that tends to be conducted at different places. For the most part, we observe a widespread and fairly equivalent distribution of funding over time.
Child health awards include the entire spectrum of basic clinical and translational research. And so basic science, how do things work? Translational research, can it be studied in people? What are the specific effects and efficacy studies and outcomes, effectiveness, and health services research that look at the real world? And we pulled up 3 applications or 3 current projects that have been funded by the Child Health Award and that are ongoing. The purpose of this is that there are some misconceptions about the types of projects funded by the Hood Foundation. Please be aware that even the most well-intentioned people may be sharing outdated information. Hood no longer funds only basic science research. Never hesitate to reach out to us directly for the most current information. Here's a sample of current funded projects showing the spectrum of research type. For basic research, Dr. Martinelli at the University of Connecticut is conducting research that addresses ADHD, for which there's insufficient knowledge about the brain functions, which can be targeted with treatments to alleviate ADHD. He is using Hood funds to develop and run a mouse model to demonstrate that a particular molecule involved in protein signaling, C1QL3, is relevant to ADHD. If true, this could open up the door for future research to design a new class of drugs that would help with ADHD. Dr. Pierce from the Yale School of Medicine is looking at the assessment of blood vessel dysfunction in critically ill children. There are not any current methods that directly address the presence or severity of capillary leak, which severely complicates care in the sickest children. Also, the mechanisms by which capillaries become dysfunctional or recover function are unknown, leaving supportive care as the only treatment. This project involves using an established bedside exam, retinal fluorescein angiography, and also a cutting-edge technique, single-cell RNA-seq, to detect capillary leak, assess severity, and characterize cellular changes from critically ill children as compared to those not so ill. The goal of this project is to diagnose and identify the pathways involved in endothelial response to critical illness. Finally, at the efficacy and effectiveness end of the research spectrum, Dr. Kira Bona at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute is looking at the feasibility of a novel poverty-targeted intervention to reduce childhood cancers. This project involves interventions that seek to reduce the unmet needs of poverty during a child's cancer treatment, which have been shown to affect childhood cancer relapse and survival. She has previously developed a resource called PediCare, designed to use nationally available commercial solutions so that long-term it can be tested across the United States. And she'll be looking at whether PediCare, by reducing food and transportation insecurity during a portion of chemotherapy treatment, is feasible and can result in improvements in cancer outcomes.
Thank you. So now let's focus on the actual application process, starting with our current timeline. So at this point, if you haven't already, be sure to visit hria.org/TMF/Hood for the full eligibility guidelines, terms of the award, and application instructions. You can also find this website on the RFA itself that's been posted. Be sure to submit proposals by noon on March 28th, 2019. If you encounter any difficulties, please reach out to me immediately if you have any risk of not making this deadline. Otherwise, the portal will be closed right at noon. Next, the funding determinations will be shared in June 2019, and the funding may begin between July and October of 2019. Awardees have the option to defer their project start date up to 3 months, which will in turn defer the project end date. The Child Health Awards follow a fairly standard model for grant proposal submissions. But as with all funders, it is important to know the specific steps and requirements needed before you dive into the process. We wanted to review some of the details on this webinar to help you navigate and to reduce some of the stress associated with applying for these types of grants. So number one, carefully review the full guidelines, terms, and instructions provided online before starting your applications. Submissions are accepted only through the online system, which includes a few different components. First, there's an electronic entry portion. When you log on, you'll complete an eligibility quiz and enter basic identifying information. Next, there's an upload portion. You are required to upload a PDF file which combines the required application face sheet, project summaries, an applicant independence institutional commitment form completed by your department or division chair, your bio sketch, budget forms, and the research proposal itself, which will have a maximum of 6 pages, not counting the bibliography. And finally, 2 confidential letters of recommendation are required, which must be submitted directly by the recommenders, also using the online system, with an optional 3rd letter allowed. The 2 required letters must be from your department or division chair and your postdoctoral mentor, residency director, or the equivalent. The 3rd letter is optional and may be from a person of your choosing. Be sure to talk with potential recommenders early in the process and well ahead of the submission deadline. Applications cannot be submitted until the required recommendations are uploaded. So you want to confirm that they are able to meet the March 28th deadline. We all know that they're probably very busy people, but your application will not be accepted by the online system until their confidential letters are received. So you must be proactive. When you log into the application system, you will not be able to see the letters themselves, but you will see whether they've been submitted. Provide gentle, respectful reminders as needed in advance of the submission deadline. So number 3, when you log into the online application system, you may be prompted to create a new account, or you may be able to access a previously existing one if you've applied to any grant programs administered through this same system. Complete the basic information and eligibility quiz questions that are listed. Pull together your proposal and other required materials and upload as a combined PDF, verifying that all letters of recommendation are on file. And finally, hit the submit button before noon on Thursday, March 28th. You will receive an email confirming that your submission was successful, and you will be able to access the system to pull up your submission. A few things to keep in mind. Successful applications most often have no typos, are easy to follow, and avoid use of obscure acronyms. Have someone not from your field review your proposal before submitting. Their input really could mean the difference between a project that would be fundable but is not funded. Don't be shy to ask for honest feedback on all components, from grammar to feasibility. Ambition is admirable, but the foundation wants to know that you are being set up to succeed. Talk with someone who has been around the block to determine if your proposal is truly realistic. And again, we'll pause. Are there any questions about the application process? And once again, you do have the option to unmute yourself or to use the chat window. Okay. So we will move on. Thank you. Dr. Sege will provide an overview of the scientific merit review process.
So the review committee, which I'll talk about in a minute, uses two kinds of review criteria. The first ones have to do with the research proposal. The research proposal must have a clearly stated hypothesis based on sound precedents and supported by relevant literature. The objectives must be technically feasible. The personnel who are qualified to carry out the proposed research, in addition to the PI, must be included to convince the review committee that the proposal will be feasible, and adequate project and institutional support must be guaranteed. Note that in some cases, additional support over and above what Hood provides may be necessary to complete the project. If so, so indicate on the application. The second area, which is quite different than most other research applications, is the review committee will look at the applicant career potential. First, applicants are expected to have established an independent research career. Those who are still working in the laboratory of their postdoctoral advisor, for example, may not compete successfully as independent research investigators unless there's some explanation for that. Secondly, potential for a future career in research relevant to child health. And third, institutional support and commitment to the applicant's research career. You'll note in the application material there are detailed questionnaires regarding how the junior faculty person was recruited and is supported at their institution, both in tabular format and in the requirements for the letter from the department chair. The review committee itself is made up of 10 investigators with experience in child health, many of whom have been Hood awardees in the past. The scientific review committee includes investigators from many fields in child health and from across New England. Occasionally, an ad hoc reviewer is needed for technical help. In all cases, 2 reviewers read and score each application. Based on these preliminary scores, the top half, those that are most competitive, are discussed at the committee. The committee then scores and votes on them, resulting in 5 proposals that are recommended for funding, plus 1 or 2 alternates. These are sent to the trustees for final selection. Note that for the past 3 years, we have sent written feedback to each applicant. Things to think about. The applicant will know more about the specific field than the reviewers in most cases. Write clearly and explain the context of the work so that a skilled and experienced child health researcher who may not be in the same field as the applicant will be able to understand the proposal. Reviewers themselves, members of our review committee, are themselves mentors. It is important to pay attention to the description both of applicant independence and career trajectory, and to the letters that attest to institutional commitment and support for the applicant. The reviewers are also themselves investigators, and one of the things that happens is sometimes we see proposals that promise more than can be done in 2 years. This can be decisive in situations where the applications are quite competitive. And please remember, so the selection process is competitive. Avoid typos, grammatical errors, and awkward cut and paste. These may, again, in some situations, hurt the possibility of funding. And now back to Charlene.
Thank you, Dr. Sege. Here we have a quick look at some of the impressive achievements of researchers who were supported by the Hood Foundation early in their careers. This is just a sampling of former Hood awardees who have gone on to serve in an impressive array of leadership positions, including Dr. Deanna Bianchi, who was a 1990 Child Health Awardee and is now Director of the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. In addition to joining a network of leaders and having the national recognition demonstrated on the prior slide, beginning in 2019, we are working to even further increase the value of the Hood Awards by offering mentorship pairings between junior faculty and established researchers who have formerly served on our scientific review committee, an annual meeting for our awardees, and also social media engagement on Twitter and LinkedIn. Again, please visit charleshoodfoundation.org for more information about the foundation. Visit hria.org/tmf/hood for the Child Health Application Guidelines and other materials. And please feel welcome to reach out to me directly at charlene.mancusi@charleshoodfoundation.org at any time if you have questions. Are there any questions at this point? Again, please feel welcome to speak up on the call or use the chat window, which is an option at the bottom of your screen. Okay, and we're not hearing any, oh, I'm sorry, hi.
Go ahead.
We had someone who started to speak. Okay, apologies. It does not seem that this option is working so well. But again, please contact me after the webinar if you have questions that you wanted to raise but were not able to submit at this point. And thank you again for joining us today. And we look forward to receiving your application soon. This will conclude our webinar. Thank you all.